What's up, 11th graders? Welcome to your 8th Algebra and Trigonometry class. I am going to take a couple of seconds of this video to explain something real quick to you guys, okay? Like I said to some of you, whether it was through the virtual classrooms or other social media platforms that we've been using to communicate, that next week you guys are going to have a quiz. But that quiz is not going to be on the material that I'm going to start today, but rather the section that we finished in our previous video, which was section 6.2. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have you take the quiz online through College One like we did previously. I'm actually going to make the quiz and then post it on the College One website so you guys can download it and answer it. Now, later on, I'm going to give you the details of how and when you're going to email me the quizzes, because what you're going to do for the math quiz is the same thing that we've been doing for your math work, which is to take a picture of it and email it to me. But we are going to do it slightly different, and as soon as I have the details completely panned out, I will send you guys through College One or through WhatsApp or maybe through one of these videos the instructions on how and when you're going to do that. Today we're going to start on the next section, which is section 6.3 on page 447, and the topic is trigonometric functions of any angle. So on section 6.2, what we did was we spoke about trigonometric identities and trigonometric functions, but for acute angles. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to determine trigonometric identities and trigonometric functions for any angle, okay? So you're still going to see sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant, but you're not going to necessarily have the same formulas or the same trigonometric identities that you did before, because those apply more to acute angles. Rather, we're going to see variations of them because they apply to angles that are not acute angles. And for those of you that are still or might be a little confused with the terminology, what I mean by acute angle is an angle that's less than 90 degrees, okay? Here we're probably going to see acute angles, and we're probably going to see obtuse angles and other different types of angles. Now, on page 447, you do have some formulas and you do have a little bit of an explanation, and they give you this formula. So we're actually going to use these 6 basic trigonometric formulas along with this formula, which is the resultant, which actually is a derivative of the distance formula, okay? Now remember that when you have an angle, you have a terminal side, and that terminal side is actually represented with the letter R. So we're actually going to use a coordinate that would be representing the letter R or the terminal side, and then we're going to plug them into this formula in order for us to then be able to work with the 6 basic trigonometric functions. Now, I know that sounds a little confusing, but let's look at example number 1. The good thing about this video is you can pause it, you can rewind it, and in worst case scenario, guys, you know you can reach me at any point via email. All of you have my number, and if you need like a little video chat, we can either go to the virtual classroom and have a little video chat there, or we can find a way to communicate with each other so that your doubts can be clarified, okay? Now, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Let's get the party started. Let's do this last work for this very, very short week, because I know we all need a little bit of a break. So, on page 447, example number 1, the problem reads, it says, let negative 3, 4 be a point on the terminal side of Z. And then they want us to find sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, so let's first of all break this down. What is the terminal side? The terminal side is this side. Okay? And they're saying let negative 3 and 4 be a point on the terminal side. So actually, negative 3 and 4 is a point on the terminal side. What it means is that it's a coordinate on the terminal side, okay? Now they want us to find sine, cosine, and tangent. So here are the formulas for sine, where it says y over r, it would be sine, and r, of course, represents the terminal side. And you have cosine, which is x over r, and then you have tangent, which is y over x. And you have the cotangent, which is x over y, and the secant, which is r over x. Now, some of these functions, and if you look in your book, some of these functions, they say y cannot be 0. And what that means is that depending on the trigonometric function that you have, the denominator cannot be a 0, because if not, it would be undefined, okay? Now, I know that that may be confusing for some of you, but don't worry, we'll get into that a little bit later on as we progress in the section, okay? So what are we supposed to do? Well, the first step is to actually plug in the ordered pair or the point into this formula. So we're actually going to use the formula that says r equals the square root of x squared plus y squared. And what we're going to do is we're just going to plug in the x squared is going to be -3 and the y squared is going to be 4. And we're actually kind of going to solve this the same way we would solve a Pythagorean theory equation or a distance formula equation. So it's nothing new to you. It's actually something that we've seen a lot throughout the school year. So you're going to say r equals the square root of -3 squared and 4 squared, okay? So -3 squared is 9, obviously, because 3 times 3 is 9. R squared is 16, or 4 squared is 16, excuse me. And then you have the square root of 9 plus 16, which is actually the square root of 25. And you all know that the square root of 25 is 5. So now that I found my radius, or my terminal side, I can actually plug them into the formula. So let's look at the formula. First formula says that the sine of z, let me do it right here, that the sine of z is x, or y over r, excuse me, and y over r, the y of course refers to the y coordinate, which is 4, and the r in this case is the r that we got from the 5, so 4 over 5. The cosine of z is actually x over r. Now the x of course would be the x coordinate that we got in the problem, which is -3. And the r is the terminal side that we just found, which is 5, so we would say -3 over 5. The tangent is actually y over x, is y over x, where y, of course, is the 4 from the point, and the x is the -3. So the tangent of z is 4 over 3. And that's it. That's the example. I mean, that's not really anything too, complicated about that. So just to kind of recap, what we did was they gave us the ordered pair, and we found the terminal side, which is given to us by this formula. So what we did, we said r equals x squared, we plugged the -3 in there, y squared, we plugged the 4 in there, -3 squared is +9, 4 squared is 16, we added 9 plus 16, which is the square root of 25, the square root of 25 is 5, and then what we did was, now that we have x, now that we have y, and now that we have r, we actually plug them into the formulas. Now these formulas are on page 447, guys. So according to these formulas, sine is defined as y over r, so the y from the point, which is 4, over the r that we just calculated, which is 5, so that'd be 4 over 5. Cosine of z is x over r, and of course that would be the x from the point, which is -3, over the r that we just calculated, which is 5. And finally, the tangent of z, which is y over x, which is the y from the point that we got originally in the example, over x, which is the -3, so that'd be 4 over -3. Now, what are you going to do now? You're actually going to answer the checkpoint on page 447. And on page 447. Now, guys, in order for you to answer the checkpoint on page 447, you actually have to use the figure that is given to you for example 1. So, the figure that they give you in example 1, not necessarily the ordered pair, the figure that they give you in example 1, you're going to use to solve the checkpoint on page 447, but instead of having -3 and 4, you have a different ordered pair there at the bottom. So guys, that's it for this algebra and trigonometry class. Next week is your quiz. I already wrote on a lot of your chats, or either sent them to you personally when we were in the virtual classroom. Your due date for these assignments is next Monday, April the 13th. But my advice, ladies and gentlemen, is to not let the work accumulate and be done with this work by Wednesday. That way you guys can take Thursday and Friday and relax. And then all you gotta do on Monday is just send the email. If you have any difficulties or need any extra time with your assignments, feel free to contact me at any moment, guys. So this is your favorite teacher signing off, saying bye.